So what if I told you that you could actually upgrade your own brain? I mean, really truly rewire it to learn just about anything, not just faster, but with way less frustration. Well, today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're unlocking your brain's hidden superpowers, all based on the science from the incredible book, Learning How to Learn.
Our story kicks off with someone who, and she'd be the first to tell you this, was a pretty terrible student. Barbara Oakley once said, "I hated math and science, so I avoided those subjects as if they were poison." Does that sound a little familiar to anyone else?
And yet, today, she's a respected professor of engineering. Yeah, you heard that right, engineering, a field that is built on the very subjects she used to fail. So you have to ask, how in the world did she pull off such a complete rewiring of her brain? And, more importantly, this explainer is going to show you how you can use the exact same tools to master any subject you set your mind to. All right, let's start with part 1, discovering your powers, your brain's 2 modes. Okay, so it turns out our brains basically have 2 completely different ways of operating. First, you've got the focused mode. This is that intense, laser-like concentration. When you're grinding through a problem you kind of already know how to solve. But then there's the diffuse mode. This is your relaxed, free-roaming mind. Think about when you're daydreaming, or in the shower, or just doodling. The secret? We need both of them to really truly learn.
Now, to really get this, we need a way to visualize it. And the book has this perfect metaphor, a pinball machine. Just imagine your thoughts are the little silver ball, and your brain is the pinball table itself. So check this out. In focused mode, you pull back that plunger. The thought ball shoots out onto a table where all the bumpers are packed really close together. It just bounces along familiar, well-worn paths. But what happens when you get stuck? Well, that's when you take a break. You just let go of the flippers, the ball drops down to a totally new table below. And this is the diffused mode. On this table, the bumpers are spaced way far apart. The ball bounces all over the place, making these wild, creative connections that were just impossible on that packed focus table. This is where those aha moments come from.
All right, on to part 2, forging new weapons, how to physically rewire your brain. Now, this whole pinball idea isn't just a cute metaphor. It's based on a very real, very powerful scientific principle, neuroplasticity. It's this incredible discovery that our brains are not fixed. The pathways our thoughts travel down can physically change and grow. It's like your neurons are clay, and you get to be the sculptor.
So, how do you actually mold that clay? Well, when you use that focus practice on something new, these tiny little bumps start to form on your neurons. But here's the crucial part. It's when you sleep that these little bumps actually grow into strong, solid connections. They're called dendritic spines. Sleep also acts like a cleanup crew, washing away toxins. But there's a catch. If you don't practice, these little synaptic vacuum cleaners come along and just sweep away those weak connections. It really is use it or lose it.
And that brings us to a much better take on an old saying. It's not really that practice makes perfect. It's that practice makes permanent, or at least a lot stronger.
Okay, so if practice is what builds these permanent brain links, how do we manage them? Let's dive into part 3. Mastering your mental toolkit. To use these brain links, first you have to understand your working memory. And for this, the book gives us another fantastic little metaphor. The attentional octopus. Just picture this little guy living in the front of your brain, and his arms are holding on to whatever you're consciously thinking about right this second. And how many arms does our little octopus friend have? Well, usually just 4. That's it. This is why you can only hold about 4 new chunks of information in your head at once. If you try to grab a 5th thing, one of the others is probably going to slip out of his grasp. Now, this is a huge limitation, but luckily our brains have this much more powerful long-term storage system we can tap into. And we access that system using our superpowered visual and spatial memory, with something called the memory palace technique. It's wild. Here's how you do it. First, you imagine a place you know really well, like your house. Second, you place these vivid, bizarre, totally outrageous images of what you want to remember along a route in that house. So, say you want to remember the French word for grapefruit, which is pamplemousse. You could picture a giant moose in your doorway, pumping up a grapefruit with a bicycle pump. Then, to remember it, you just take a mental walk through your house.
It's an ancient technique, and it works like magic.
Part 4. Slaying your learning dragons.
Every hero's got to slay some dragons, right? Well, for any learner, the #1 biggest, baddest beast is procrastination. We all know this one. It's that feeling of dread when you even think about doing something you don't want to do. And get this, it actually activates the pain centers in your brain.
But don't worry, we have a weapon, the Pomodoro technique, and it is so simple it's brilliant. First, turn off everything. No phone, notifications, nothing. Second, set a timer for 25 minutes. Third, just focus as hard as you can on that one task. When the timer dings, you stop. And fourth, this is the most important part. You take a 5-minute break and give yourself a genuine reward. This little focused burst actually bypasses that brain pain and builds up your focus muscle over time.
All right, so you've taken down procrastination. But there's always a final boss lurking at the end of the level, isn't there? And that boss is test stress.
Here's your strategy. First, use the hard start technique. When the test starts, find a hard problem and just look at it for a minute or two. Don't try to solve it, just load it into your brain. Then switch to an easy problem. Your diffuse mode, that pinball machine, will start working on that hard one in the background. And here's a huge mental trick. Instead of thinking, oh man, I'm so nervous, reframe it. Tell yourself, okay, I'm excited to show them what I've got. And that brings us to part 5. With all these tools, we can fundamentally change how we feel about learning. We can actually go from feeling like we have to do this stuff to feeling like we get to do it. So let's just recap the key strategies that make this amazing shift happen.
Okay, here are the top 5 things you absolutely have to do. Balance between that focused and diffuse mode. Space your learning out over days, don't cram. Test yourself constantly. That's called active recall. Get some exercise to help grow new neurons. And focus on the stuff that's actually hard for you.
And just as important, here are the top 5 traps you need to avoid. Don't cheat yourself on sleep. That's when the magic happens. Stop passively rereading and highlighting. It's useless. Never, ever glance at a solution and think, oh yeah, I knew that. And of course, no last-minute cramming and no studying with your phone buzzing next to you.
Look, when it comes down to it, you have the most complex, most advanced tool in the entire known universe sitting right between your ears. It can change, it can grow, and it can learn anything. So the only real question left is, what will you get to learn next?